My name is Natalie Pierce. I'm 30 years old, and on the day that was supposed to be the best day of my life, half the church looked like a rehearsal instead of a wedding. I remember standing at the back of the aisle, veil pinned in, bouquet trembling just a little in my hands, and staring past the flowers and candles to the front row on the left. Daniel's family, his mom, his dad, his sisters, his uncles, cousins, were packed shoulder to shoulder. They'd flown in from 3 different states, some of them driving overnight just to be here. His grandmother, who could barely stand without her walker, insisted on getting dressed up and sitting in the second row, lips pressed together like she was holding back tears. My side, though, it looked like someone had reserved an entire section for ghosts. A few aunts, 2 cousins, an old friend from high school I hadn't seen in years, and a painfully long stretch of empty pews where my parents, my brother, and my sister were supposed to be. They'd each called me the week before, one after another, voices trembling through the phone. First my mother, then my father, then my sister, then my older brother. We tested positive, my mom had said, sniffing into the receiver. We're so sick, Nat. We're devastated. We can't come. We wouldn't risk getting anyone else sick. My dad echoed her a few hours later. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. We were looking forward to it. It's just bad timing. We'll make it up to you, okay? My sister added her own flair. I bought a dress and everything. I can't believe this. I'm literally sobbing. My brother kept it simple. You know, if we could be there, we would. I believed them. Of course I did. Because I'm the one who always believes them. I felt so bad for them that I sent photos of the venue during the rehearsal, the flower arch, the cake, little videos of Daniel practicing his vows under his breath, jokingly messing up his lines. I thought maybe it would make them feel included, ease the sting of missing it. On the day itself, I told myself the empty seats didn't matter, that what mattered was Daniel standing at the end of the aisle, hands clasped, eyes soft and steady, whenever he looked back to check if I was okay. What mattered was his mother fussing over my veil like it was her own daughter getting married, his sisters whispering jokes during the photos to make me laugh when my hands started to shake. And honestly, in the moment, it was beautiful. Not perfect, not cinematic, but real. It felt like we'd stripped away the people who were there for the performance and been left with the ones who were there for the commitment. The ceremony ended in a blur of vows and rings and applause. We danced. We cut cake. Daniel's family treated me like I'd always been one of theirs. His dad toasted to gaining a daughter. His mom cried into a napkin and whispered, "You're ours now. They'll come around." I smiled and nodded because what else could I do? Later that night, after the last song faded and the last car left the parking lot, Daniel and I went back to the hotel. We should have been wrapped up in that warm, hazy bubble newlyweds talk about. Instead, after he fell asleep, exhausted from the day and one too many glasses of champagne, I sat on the edge of the bed in my undershirt and bridal hair, scrolling through my phone. That's when I saw it. The photo. Bright sun, palm trees, a row of lounge chairs lined up in the sand. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister, their partners, my cousin Jess, everyone who had supposedly been sick, standing together on a beach in Hawaii, arms around each other, skin already going a little pink from the sun. My mother wore a flower lei. My sister had braids with little shells woven in. My dad held a drink with a tiny umbrella. They all smiled so wide it looked painful. The caption was what really did it. Real family together. No one left behind. No one left behind. I stared at that sentence until the words lost their shape. The comments were full of heart emojis and "so happy for you guys" and "you deserve this break." Not one mention of me, not one "sorry we missed the wedding" or "can't believe we're not there for Natalie's big day." They weren't sick. They weren't heartbroken. They weren't quarantining in bed wishing they could be with me. They were on my dream honeymoon destination. Together. Paid for by someone. I didn't comment with anger. I didn't call anyone out. I didn't type out the furious paragraph that was clawing its way up my throat. I just clicked like. Then I wrote one simple reply under the photo. Fine, now you can pay without me. And I left the family group chat. No dramatic exit, no last word, just gone. My phone buzzed a few times with messages from cousins. Everything okay? Did something happen? I didn't answer. I put the phone face down on the nightstand and climbed back into bed. Daniel rolled over, draped an arm across my waist, and breathed peacefully against my shoulder. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, listening to the hotel air conditioner hum. A part of me kept waiting to feel that familiar tug, the urge to fix it, to justify, to make excuses on their behalf. Maybe it was a last-minute deal. Maybe they were still a little sick. Maybe they meant something else by real family. But the truth was louder than all of that. They knew when my wedding was. They'd had the save the dates, the invitations, the reminders. And instead of showing up, they'd chosen to be thousands of miles away, laughing on a beach, posting about togetherness. Without me. Over the next 2 days, I focused on what needed to be done. Daniel and I finished paperwork with our officiant, helped his parents clean up the venue, made sure our marriage license was properly filed. I smiled in photos. I thanked people for coming. I didn't say a single word about the Hawaii post. Not yet. But when it was time to go home, I told Daniel I'd head back a day before him. He had to wrap up some things with his parents. I had something else I needed to handle. You see, my family had been living in the house I inherited from my grandfather, the house I grew up visiting on weekends, the house he left to me specifically, in his will, because he said I was the only one he trusted not to sell it for quick cash. When I took that job that had me traveling constantly, I'd let my parents move in rent-free. "You're saving us, Nat," my dad had told me once, standing in the kitchen with his hand on the counter like it was his. "You don't even know it." I thought I was being a good daughter, a generous one. Now I knew exactly what I was. A funding source. I landed back in town late afternoon. I didn't tell them I was coming. I took a rideshare straight from the airport to the house, let myself in with my key, and walked through the rooms that smelled like their detergent and their cooking and their candles. Then I called a locksmith. By sunset, every lock in the house was changed. I packed their things into boxes, carefully, not vindictively. I stacked them in the garage. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one my grandfather used to sit at with his coffee and the newspaper, and wrote a note. "You have 7 days from the moment you walk in the door to find another place. After that, the eviction will be official. Do not contact me." I taped the note to the inside of the front door where they'd see it the second they walked in. Then I locked up, walked out, and drove to Daniel's parents' house. As I lay in their guest room that night, staring at the ceiling for the second time that week, I realized something else. They thought I would always be the one left standing, waiting, forgiving. But this time when they came home, I wouldn't be the one locked out. They would. They landed on a Tuesday. I knew the exact moment because I heard the sound first. Suitcase wheels grinding against concrete, the thunk, thunk, thunk of overstuffed luggage being dragged up the walkway. I stood behind the upstairs curtain in the guest room at Daniel's parents' house, still in pajama shorts, coffee warming my hands, and watched their Uber pull away. They looked like a postcard. My mother wore a pink flower lei, still fresh enough to glisten with moisture. My sister had her hair done in vacation braids, little shells tied into the ends. My brother walked with his arm around his girlfriend, both of them sunburned and laughing. My father, tan and smug, immediately complained about the heat like Hawaii had spoiled him. Not one of them looked sick. Not one of them carried the guilt of someone who had missed their daughter's wedding. They looked well-rested, relaxed, and ready to come home to the house I inherited. My brother took out his key and tried the lock. Click. Nothing. He tried again. Click. Still nothing. My mother frowned, leaning in like she expected the door to magically understand she was there. My father made a joke about cheap batteries and tried the keypad like he had authority over it. Then came the knocking. Soft at first, polite even. Then louder. Then the doorbell. They were confused, truly confused. As if it had never crossed their minds, not even once, that life might move without them. My phone buzzed. It was my sister. "What's wrong with the door? Why won't it open?" I stared at the message for a long second before typing the simplest answer of my life. "You have 7 days to leave. After that, you'll be evicted." No greeting, no explanation, no bargaining. Just the truth. I watched my sister read it. She showed it to my mother. My mother's jaw dropped. My father stepped back like someone had shoved him. Then the shouting started. "This is still our home. Natalie, open this door right now. What is wrong with you? We're your family." I sipped my coffee and let their words bounce off the closed windows. They stayed on the porch until sunset, like stray cats who didn't understand the house wasn't theirs anymore. That night, they camped out on the front steps. My father raged into the darkness. My mother cried loud enough for the neighbors to hear. My brother called me a psychopath. And my sister paced the walkway like she was rehearsing arguments she'd never get to deliver. No one helped them, not even the neighbors. Miss Felton from next door sent me a text. "Proud of you." The next morning, they were still there, but quieter. Exhaustion does that. On day 2, they switched tactics. They tried reason. My mother slipped a handwritten note under the door. I never read it. My father stood there for 20 minutes, telling the door to be reasonable. My sister offered to talk things out, conveniently skipping the part where she'd lied about being sick while lounging in Maui. On day 3, I logged into the security cameras from my phone and watched them have a fast food picnic in my backyard, using my garden chairs like nothing had changed. Day 4 is when everything shifted. It started with a fraud alert text from my bank, a charge at a cheap roadside motel 2 towns away, on a debit card I hadn't used in years. My stomach dropped. I opened the banking app, scrolled, stopped. I stared at a list of transactions that painted the clearest picture of betrayal I'd ever seen. 2 first-class flights to Maui, 3 coach flights, 7 nights at a luxury resort, multiple spa appointments, snorkeling tours, jet ski rentals, souvenir shops, beach bars, lounges, brunch spots, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, every single charge attached to my name. They hadn't just lied to me. They hadn't just skipped my wedding. They hadn't just partied on a beach while I said my vows without them. They used my money to do it. The room went quiet around me. The only sound was Daniel in the kitchen prepping dinner, humming as he chopped vegetables, oblivious to the storm curling beneath my skin. It took me 20 minutes to force myself to walk into that kitchen. When I told him everything, every charge, every lie, every piece, his expression didn't twist into shock. It settled into something firmer, something steady. He poured me a whiskey, set it in front of me, and said just one thing. "You already know what you have to do." He was right. The next morning, I started making calls. The eviction process was already in motion. But this was war. They didn't leave on the 7th day. Part of me expected it. People like them don't believe consequences are real until they're standing at their feet. I drove by the house that afternoon, parking across the street with the engine running. My mother paced the driveway in her bathrobe, looking lost. My father sat on the porch smoking, muttering angrily. My sister scrolled through her phone like she was above everything. The U-Haul sat in this driveway, half full. They'd started packing, then stopped, like they truly believed I wouldn't go through with it. At 4 p.m., the sheriff pulled up. Civil process. Clean. Official. No theatrics. They were given 1 hour. I didn't stay to watch. I didn't need to. I knew exactly how it would unfold. Instead, I went back to Daniel's parents' house, opened my laptop, and joined a video call with my lawyer. We were filing a civil suit against all 3 of them. Financial fraud, unauthorized access to a joint account, theft. My lawyer called it a slam dunk. I didn't want revenge. I wanted accountability. And I wanted a paper trail, one they could never lie their way out of. After the sheriff cleared them out, the real unraveling began. They didn't leave the city. They didn't regroup. They didn't apologize. They didn't even try to understand what they'd done. They scavenged. For days, they tried every possible door. Emotional, legal, financial, trying to pry their way back into my life. And each attempt made one thing clearer. They never saw the house as mine. They saw it as theirs by default, just like they saw my time, my money, my life. The night after the eviction, my phone lit up with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I blocked one. Another took its place minutes later. The voicemails came in waves. My mother sobbing, my father lecturing, my sister screaming threats, then crying apologies, then threatening again. I didn't answer a single one. They tried reaching me through Daniel. They tried through mutual friends. My brother even emailed my boss, calling me unstable. When that didn't work, they tried Daniel's parents. And that was the last straw. His dad told them calmly but firmly to never call again. He said they abandoned me, stole from me, then dared to call themselves victims. The call ended abruptly. They never tried that number again. But they weren't done. Not even close. 3 days after the eviction, I got a call from my lawyer. "The suit is progressing," he said. "Don't worry, they'll settle fast once they realize the exposure." That should have comforted me, but all I could think was, what would my parents do before that moment? I didn't have to wait long for an answer. That afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number, one I hadn't blocked yet. It was my Aunt Sylvia. She was the only one from my side who'd shown up at the wedding. She'd sat quietly, dressed modestly, carrying a worn leather purse and eyes that understood more than she said. She hugged me longer than everyone else. "Natalie," she said softly, "I heard your mother is having trouble. What's going on?" Part of me didn't want to open the door even for her, but something in her voice, tired, old, honest, made me breathe. So I told her. Not everything, but enough. The lies, the Facebook post, the house, the bank account, the Hawaii charges. She was silent for a long time. Then she sighed and said something I will never forget. I had a feeling. They were bragging about the trip on Facebook before they even got back. The world tilted slightly. They said they needed a break from the stress of planning your wedding, she added. That told me everything I needed to know. They didn't choose Hawaii over my wedding last minute. They were never planning on coming. COVID was just the excuse they chose. They stole my money, lied to my face, lied to everyone at the wedding, went to Hawaii, posted about real family, and never planned to be there for me. Silence gathered in my chest like a storm. Thank you, I told Sylvia, and I hung up. A week later, the settlement came through. They agreed to repay what they'd spent. First-class flights, resort charges, spa visits, excursions, plus my legal fees. In exchange, I dropped the threat of criminal charges. My lawyer called it fair, but it wasn't about fairness. I wanted documentation, a signed settlement, proof they paid back what they stole, a record that couldn't be rewritten in their story. I cashed the check, took the receipt, slipped both into a labeled folder. It was done. For them, not for me. Because life has a way of exposing what people really think of you, even when they think you'll never find out. It started with a grocery receipt. Danielle and I were budgeting at the table when he pointed at a transaction. GreenPath Insurance, $267.42. What's this? He asked. My heart sank. GreenPath was my parents' car insurance. Still on autopay. Still linked to my account. Still draining me after everything. Quietly, I pulled out my laptop and began checking every autopay I ever set up. What I found made bile rise in my throat. 2 active phone lines under my name, one for my sister, one for my brother. A storage unit on the east side of town under my billing address. 3 streaming services. A digital magazine subscription my father still used. My brother's gym membership. My sister's old music subscription. Even the Wi-Fi at their apartment. My entire adult life was threaded through theirs, silently, invisibly. And they'd never once asked if it was okay. Never once said thank you. I shut everything down that night. It felt surgical, cold, clean. The silence afterward was deafening. The next morning, all hell broke loose. 13 missed calls, voicemails from all 3 of them, a text from my mother. How could you do this? One from my father. You're being dramatic, my sister. You're literally ruining our lives. Fix the phone now. At noon, Daniel and I were eating leftovers when the power flickered in the living room. I blinked, confused, until I realized it wasn't our power. It was theirs. The Netflix account I'd canceled had been logged in at their apartment. They tried to watch TV, and the world went dark. So that's what they noticed first, Daniel said dryly, taking a sip of water. That night, they showed up again, pounding on the door of Daniel's parents' house. I didn't go downstairs, but I watched them on the security camera from the upstairs window. My dad screaming that I ruined everything. My mom sobbing. My sister standing back, staring at her phone, pretending she wasn't part of this. They left after 10 minutes. The next morning, Daniel's dad told me he'd gotten a call from my father, asking him to talk sense into me. That was the last straw for him. He told my father exactly what he thought of a man who'd steal from his daughter and then pretend to be the victim. They never called him again. Then came the email. Subject: We have nothing left, Natalie. It was from my mother. She said they were 3 months behind on rent, that their car was uninsured, that my sister lost her job, that my father had been working from libraries because they had no Wi-Fi. You've made your point, she wrote. Please stop. For a moment, just a moment, something tugged in my chest. Not pity, old conditioning, that reflex to fix things. Then I remembered the Facebook post. Real family together, no one left behind, except the daughter they stole from. I printed her email, filed it next to the lawsuit paperwork, and kept living my life. Because I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The moment I thought the storm had finally burned itself out, it returned with a venom I should have expected. It was 2 weeks after the eviction when the knock came, not frantic, not desperate, but sharp, controlled. Someone who believed they still had the upper hand. Daniel muted the TV. I checked the security camera feed. A man in a navy suit stood on the porch holding a thick envelope. My stomach dropped. This wasn't family. This was paperwork. I opened the door only halfway. Natalie Pierce? He asked. Yes. He handed me the envelope. You've been served. My pulse hammered. I waited until he left the driveway before tearing it open. Inside was a lawsuit, filed by my father, claiming that the house I inherited, my grandfather's house, was never really mine, that he, my father, was promised the property in a private conversation with my grandfather years ago that I had manipulated a dying man and stolen the home from the rightful heir. It was delusional, it was pathetic, but it was also the first moment I felt something close to rage, not because they were taking another swing at me, but because they were dragging my grandfather into it. The man who raised me, the one person in my family who never took from me, the one who left me the house because he didn't trust them not to sell it. I took the envelope straight to my lawyer, Colson, a calm, sharp man with a quiet confidence and glasses always perched too low on his nose. He flipped through the pages, nodded once, closed the folder. "This won't go anywhere," he said, "but we're not just dismissing it, we're burying it." And he did. Within 2 weeks, he filed a motion to dismiss along with every piece of documentation my father could never overcome. My grandfather's notarized will, the deed with my name on it, bank records showing they used my money for the Hawaii trip, copies of the settlement where they refunded me, printouts of their Facebook posts, proof of their eviction for cause. And then the kill shot, a cease and desist order, warning them that any further harassment, defamation, or attempts to weaponize relatives would result in a public lawsuit that would stain every corner of their reputation. They didn't even show up for the hearing. Not the first, not the second. Their case was dismissed in minutes. Colson slid the document toward me. "It's over." But it didn't feel like a victory parade. It felt like a funeral, for what used to pass for a family. I didn't go straight home afterward. My hands were shaking too much to drive. Instead, I took the long, winding road out to the old fishing dock where my grandfather used to take me as a kid. The dock was mostly rotted now, just a few boards clinging stubbornly to the posts. The lake was still, darkening toward evening. I sat down on the one plank that wasn't cracked and let my feet hang over the water. I could almost hear him. Not his voice, just the feeling of what he would have said. "Are you okay with what you did?" And I was. I finally was. When I returned home, Daniel was waiting on the porch with 2 cold drinks. He didn't ask how the hearing went. He knew. He just handed me a bottle, sat beside me, and leaned his shoulder against mine while the sun slipped behind the neighborhood roofs. "We're done with them," he said quietly. I nodded. But life wasn't done giving me the last twist. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address. Folded paper, handwritten. It was from my sister, the one who accused me of ruining her life, who screamed at me through voicemails, who posted photos from Hawaii with a drink in hand while I stood alone at the altar. "Natalie," it began, "I'm done with them." She went on. She wrote that once everything fell apart, after the eviction, the power shutoffs, the lawsuits, the screaming, the debt, she finally saw how deep the rot ran. She said she'd fought with our parents, said she realized she'd spent her whole life taking from me because that's what she was taught. She said she was sleeping on a friend's couch now, looking for a job, trying to start over. She didn't ask for money, or forgiveness, or access. She just said, "I understand if you don't respond. I just needed you to know." I read the letter twice, then a third time. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer, not with the lawsuit papers, not with the evidence folder. A drawer by itself. Because I wasn't sure what I believed yet, or what I would allow, or whether a future existed there at all. Forgiveness doesn't always mean opening a door. Sometimes it means building a fence and choosing who gets through the gate. Months passed. Daniel and I rebuilt the house, room by room. We repainted walls, tore down an old dining room archway, replanted the garden, filled the kitchen with laughter instead of tension. For the first time in years, the house felt like mine. And somewhere in the middle of all that building, something in me healed. Not perfectly, not magically, but enough that when I looked around, I realized the truth. Family isn't the people who share your blood. Family is the people who show up when the ones who share your blood are smiling in a beach photo without you. It's Daniel's mom crying at my wedding. It's his sisters dancing with me at the reception. It's his dad shutting down my parents' manipulation without hesitation. It's his uncle flying in and telling me the truth, even when it hurt. It's the people who stayed. The ones who held me together, while the ones who should have loved me tore me apart. In the end, I didn't leave my family. They left me long before Hawaii. I just finally closed the door behind them. And this time, it stayed closed.